Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when you look in the mirror and realize you made yourself a promise to be more, to do more, to live with purpose. But somewhere along the way, comfort got louder than commitment, and excuses became easier than effort. This is your reminder that the person you were meant to become is still waiting. You promised more to yourself, and it's time to start keeping that promise. And as you stand in this moment, caught between who you were and who you are becoming, understand that this space, this uncomfortable, uncertain, challenging space is sacred. This is where transformation happens. This is where the promise begins to breathe again. You might not see the results yet, you might not feel the progress, but make no mistake, every time you choose to push forward, every time you choose to honor your word, you are reshaping your destiny. Growth is invisible before it becomes undeniable. It happens quietly, beneath the surface, in the choices no one sees, in the effort no one applauds, in the patience that feels unbearable. But one day, all those unseen moments will speak for you. One day, the results will reflect the discipline you maintained when it would have been easier to give up. You promised yourself more, and that means you can no longer afford to live like someone who expects life to hand them success. You must earn it, not through luck, not through wishful thinking, but through consistent, deliberate effort. The world rewards persistence, not potential. Potential is a beautiful thing, but it means nothing without the work to bring it to life. You have dreams that can move mountains, but only if you move first. Only if you rise each day with intention and give yourself to the process, even when the outcome is uncertain. Because that's the essence of the promise, to act with faith before the reward appears. Every single day offers you a chance to recommit to the vision you once had. Maybe it's been months or even years since you first made that promise. Maybe life has knocked you down, distracted you, or made you doubt yourself. That's okay. The promise isn't broken, it's just waiting to be remembered. You can pick it back up right now. You can begin again. You can decide at this very moment that you will no longer live beneath your potential. You can choose to stop allowing fear to dictate your future. You can choose to believe that the person you dreamed of becoming is still possible, still within reach, still waiting on you to take that next step. When you made that promise, you didn't promise ease, you didn't promise comfort, you promised effort, persistence, and resilience. You promised that no matter how difficult it became, you wouldn't stop. You wouldn't let the world convince you to settle, because deep down you knew that to settle is to betray the part of you that still believes in greatness. Every time you settle for less than you're capable of, you feel it, that small, sinking feeling inside. It's not guilt, it's not shame, it's truth. It's the reminder that you promised more, and that reminder is a gift. It's the compass that points you back toward purpose. The greatest satisfaction in life doesn't come from what you receive. It comes from what you become. And becoming requires struggle. It requires the discipline to do what others won't. It requires patience when progress is slow and confidence when no one else believes. It means embracing the lonely moments, the early mornings, the long nights, the sacrifices that no one else understands. Because that's the price of greatness, and you already agreed to pay it the day you made that promise. So now the question becomes, what are you willing to give up to become who you said you'd be? Are you willing to let go of the distractions that steal your focus? Are you willing to silence the excuses that keep you comfortable? Are you willing to walk alone for a while, if that's what it takes to rise above the noise? Because the truth is, not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will see your vision, but that's fine, they don't need to. The promise was never made to them, it was made to you. There will be days when it feels like the promise is too heavy to carry, days when progress seems invisible, when fatigue whispers louder than ambition, when the path ahead blurs into uncertainty, in those moments you must remember that growth is not linear, it's not a smooth climb, it's a series of falls and recoveries, of failures and breakthroughs. The only thing that truly matters is that you keep moving. You don't have to move fast, you just have to move with purpose. Every small step, every quiet effort, every disciplined choice is proof that you still honor the promise. And you must protect that promise, guard it against doubt, against negativity, against the temptation to take the easy way out. The world will try to convince you to compromise, to settle for less, to conform. But if you do, you'll always feel that ache, that quiet dissatisfaction that comes from living below your own standards. You can't escape it because it's the truth of your own potential calling out to you. And once you've tasted what it feels like to grow, once you've glimpsed who you could become, you can never truly go back to pretending you're content with less. You owe it to yourself to see what's possible when you refuse to quit. You owe it to the person you were when you first made that promise, the one who believed that something greater was waiting. You owe it to the person you're becoming, the one who will look back and say, I kept my word. Because keeping your word to yourself is the highest form of respect. It builds strength of character. It builds confidence. It builds a life you can stand behind. When you live that way, you no longer need motivation. You operate from commitment. You operate from integrity. The promise you made was not a moment of wishful thinking, it was a declaration of purpose. You declared that you would not waste your potential. You declared that you would turn pain into power, obstacles into lessons, and dreams into plans. That declaration still matters. It still carries weight. But now it's up to you to live it, not just say it. You must be the living proof of that promise through your actions, your habits, your mindset. Let every decision you make reflect the person you said you would become. Think of where you could be a year from now if you recommitted today. Think of the strength you'd build if you refuse to quit when it gets hard. Think of the peace you'd feel if you finally started keeping your word, not sometimes, but every time. The distance between your current life and the one you desire isn't measured in miles or luck. It's measured in consistency. One day of discipline won't change your life, but a year of it will. 10 years of it will make you unrecognizable, not just in what you have, but in who you are. You promised more because you saw a glimpse of your true potential, and that vision wasn't a lie. That was your higher self showing you what's possible if you stop running from your greatness. So when fear rises, when fatigue sets in, when doubt creeps back, remind yourself that you've already decided. You made a promise, and that means the decision is done. There's no turning back. Every challenge, every setback, every test from this point on is simply part of keeping that promise alive. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't always the most talented, the most gifted, or the most intelligent. They're simply the ones who refuse to give up on the promise they made to themselves. They persist when others pause, they push when others retreat, they fall, they fail, but they never stop showing up. That's the difference. That's what separates those who dream from those who do. And you were never meant to be ordinary. That's why the promise exists in the first place. There will come a day when you look back and realize that every sacrifice, every difficult choice, every lonely night was worth it. You'll see that the discomfort was the evidence that you were on the right path. You'll realize that growth doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens when you face the moments that test your commitment and you choose to keep going anyway. Because that's what honoring the promise looks like. It's not about perfection, it's about persistence. It's about showing up every single day and giving just a little more than you did yesterday. So take a breath, gather your focus, and remind yourself of who you are. You're not someone who quits halfway. You're not someone who forgets their word. You're someone who made a promise that still matters, a promise that still defines you. Every morning you wake up is another chance to keep it. Every challenge you face is another chance to prove it. And every step you take, no matter how small, is another reminder that you are still becoming the person you were always meant to be, the one who promised more and meant it. And when you begin to live in that truth, when you begin to act in alignment with the promise you made, something remarkable happens. The world around you starts to respond. Opportunities that once seemed invisible begin to reveal themselves. The right people start to cross your path. Circumstances begin to shift, not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. Your energy changes when you move with conviction. When your actions speak louder than your doubts, you attract momentum. You begin to see that the universe has always been ready to reward your consistency. It was just waiting for you to keep your word. You've probably noticed that life doesn't hand out progress to the half committed. It waits for those who prove they are serious. It tests every intention you set, not to discourage you, but to determine if you truly mean it. And each time you push through resistance, each time you reject the comfort that once held you back, you prove it not to anyone else, but to yourself. You remind yourself that your word still carries power, that you are still capable of keeping a promise even when no one is watching. That quiet confidence becomes your greatest strength. Because when you can trust yourself, when you can depend on your own discipline, you become unstoppable. There's something profoundly liberating about living in alignment with your word. You stop chasing validation. You stop comparing your path to others. You stop seeking shortcuts because you realize that the real reward isn't the destination, it's the transformation. The long nights, the early mornings, the battles with self-doubt, those moments sculpt you. They shape a kind of strength that comfort can never produce. And when you start to feel that growth within you, when you start to see what consistency can do, you no longer crave ease. You crave progress. You promised yourself more, not because you wanted life to be easy, but because you wanted it to be meaningful. There's a vast difference between living and merely existing. Existing is drifting through days without purpose. Living is waking up with intention, knowing that each choice carries weight. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control every effort. And when effort becomes your standard, life begins to open in ways that once seemed impossible. The promise you made was a contract not written on paper, but carved into your character, and that contract demands accountability. It demands that you stop blaming your circumstances, stop waiting for perfect timing, and stop expecting someone else to rescue you from your own hesitation. No one is coming to do the work for you. No one can carry your promise except you. You must become your own source of strength. You must become the one who looks in the mirror and says, no matter how long it takes, I'm not quitting. Because that's what separates the dreamers from the doers. The dreamers wait for permission. The doers give themselves permission. You can't control the pace of life, but you can control your pace of effort. Some seasons will move slower than you want. Progress may feel invisible. But remember, what looks like stagnation on the surface is often growth in disguise. The roots are strengthening before the tree can rise. You might not see the results yet, but the work is working. The promise is unfolding. You just have to stay long enough to witness the harvest. There will be people who won't understand your dedication. They'll tell you to relax, to slow down, to accept where you are. But you'll know better. Because deep down you'll hear the echo of your promise, reminding you that complacency was never part of the plan. You didn't come this far to stop halfway. You didn't endure all those late nights, all those doubts, all those sacrifices, just to end up average. The fire inside you wasn't lit for mediocrity, it was lit for mastery. You'll notice something as you continue on this path. Your relationship with struggle will change. You'll stop fearing it. You'll start respecting it. Because every challenge is an invitation to level up. Every obstacle is a test of how much you want what you say you want. The discomfort you once ran from becomes the proof that you're on the right track. You begin to realize that adversity isn't a barrier, it's a mirror. It reflects the strength that still lies dormant within you. You must remember that no one becomes great by accident. Excellence is the result of thousands of small, consistent acts that most people will never see. It's built in the moments of silence, when the world is asleep and you're still working. It's built in the discipline to choose growth over gratification. Every time you choose to push through, to stay focused, to keep your word, you are building something far greater than success. You are building character. And character will outlast every temporary failure and every fleeting victory. You promised more to yourself, and that means you must expect more from yourself, not in a way that breeds guilt or frustration, but in a way that demands honesty. Be honest about your habits, about your effort, about the gap between what you say you want and what you actually do. Because honesty is the foundation of growth. You can't fix what you won't face. And when you face the truth with courage, when you stop making excuses and start taking ownership, everything begins to shift. Responsibility becomes power. The moment you take full ownership of your life, you reclaim your ability to change it. Every day you wake up is a new opportunity to prove that you still believe in that promise. It doesn't matter how many times you've stumbled. It doesn't matter how many seasons you've wasted in doubt or distraction. The future doesn't care about your past. It only responds to your present commitment. You can begin again today stronger, wiser, and more focused than ever before. You can rewrite your story by living it differently, one disciplined choice at a time, and you'll start to notice that the more you keep your word, the more your inner voice changes. The voice of doubt begins to quiet, replaced by a voice of certainty. You start to trust yourself again. You start to believe not because someone told you to, but because you've seen the proof through your own consistency. You've built it one action at a time, and that belief, that self-trust, becomes the foundation of unshakable confidence. You'll realize that the promise you made wasn't just about success, it was about freedom. The freedom to live without regret, the freedom to wake up each day knowing you gave your best, the freedom to look in the mirror and respect the person staring back at you. Because when you live with integrity, when you keep your word to yourself, you no longer need to chase validation. You become enough not because of what you have, but because of who you've become in the process. The promise is not a destination, it's a daily discipline. It's renewed in the moments you'd rather quit but choose to continue. It's strengthened every time you resist comfort and chase purpose. It's proven not in the grand victories, but in the small, quiet wins that no one else sees. And the beauty of it all is that the more you live this way, the more natural it becomes. What once required immense effort becomes your standard. What once felt impossible becomes your normal. You'll find that success stops being something you chase and starts being something you attract, because consistency breeds confidence, and confidence attracts opportunity. The world opens its doors to those who keep their promises. The dream doesn't belong to the one who talks about it. It belongs to the one who shows up for it every single day. And yes, there will be days when you falter. Days when the promise feels heavy again. Days when life hits harder than expected, but those moments do not define you. What defines you is your return, your decision to rise again, to adjust, to recommit. You don't have to be perfect. You only have to be persistent, because persistence is the language of progress, and progress is the proof that the promise is alive. So when doubt tries to whisper that you've done enough, that you can slow down, that maybe you've already reached your limit, remind yourself that you promised more, not for the applause, not for the recognition, but because you were never meant to stop here. The promise you made was a vision of what's possible. It was the truest reflection of who you can become. And as long as that promise lives within you, as long as that fire still burns, there is always another level waiting to be reached. And as you continue to honor that promise, something deeper begins to awaken within you, a calm certainty that no storm can shake. You start to see that the obstacles you once feared were never meant to stop you. They were meant to shape you. They were there to test your patience, to refine your focus, to strip away everything that was holding you back from becoming the person you needed to be. You begin to understand that growth was never about avoiding struggle. It was about learning to walk through it with grace and determination. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every delay becomes preparation. Every hardship becomes the very ground upon which your strength is built. You promised more to yourself, and the truth is, that promise will demand a version of you that you haven't yet met. It will ask you to outgrow your old habits, your old excuses, and even some of the people who no longer fit the direction you're going. And though it may feel painful to let go, it's necessary, because you cannot carry yesterday's weight into tomorrow's opportunity. You must make room for who you're becoming, the path of self. Promise is one of constant renewal. You shed, you rebuild, you evolve. And through it all, you discover that the person you're meant to be has been waiting for your courage all along. There will be times when you'll feel like progress has slowed to a crawl, when the distance between where you are and where you want to be feels impossibly wide. But those moments are not the end, they are the middle, the testing ground. This is where most people stop. This is where they turn back, thinking the journey was not meant for them, but you are not most people. You made a promise, and that means you keep walking, you keep fighting, you keep believing, even when the results are invisible, even when the reward feels distant, because the promise is not about instant gratification, it's about lasting transformation. It's about becoming the kind of person who keeps going no matter how long it takes. And when you live that way, you begin to see the world differently. You stop chasing what's easy and start valuing what's meaningful. You stop asking, how fast can I get there? And start asking, how strong can I become along the way? You realize that the process itself is the point, that each day of discipline, each act of perseverance, each moment of faith is shaping you into something far greater than success alone could ever give you. You start to take pride in the unseen work because you know that's where the real magic happens. It's easy to make promises when the road is smooth. It's easy to say, I'll do better, when the sun is shining and the path is clear. But the real test of your word comes when everything inside you wants to quit, when fatigue replaces motivation, when uncertainty replaces confidence, when the results don't match the effort. That's when you discover who you truly are. Because the promise doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for persistence. It asks that, no matter how heavy the burden becomes, you find a way to keep going. And each time you do, you build a kind of inner strength that cannot be taken from you. You begin to realize that keeping your promise to yourself is not just about achieving goals, it's about reclaiming your power. The power to decide, the power to act, the power to become. Because the moment you keep your word to yourself, you take control of your life. You stop living as a passenger and start steering your own direction. You stop waiting for motivation and start relying on discipline. You stop hoping things will change and start being the one who changes them. That's what the promise was really about: freedom through responsibility. Each morning when you wake up, you have a choice. You can continue to make excuses, or you can continue to make progress. You can repeat yesterday, or you can rewrite today. You can drift, or you can decide. Every day, life places that power in your hands, and what you choose determines everything. Some people will spend their entire lives waiting for the right time, never realizing that right now is the only time that truly exists. You cannot wait for inspiration to find you. You must create it. You must act before you feel ready, because action is what awakens clarity, and clarity is what strengthens commitment. And yes, there will be days when you'll stumble, days when you'll question whether the promise was worth it, days when the voice of doubt will whisper that you're not cut out for this. But that voice is a liar. It speaks only to the part of you that fears change, that clings to the comfort of the familiar. Don't listen, because deep down you already know the truth. Every great thing you've ever accomplished came from moments when you pushed past fear and chose courage instead. And courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward despite it. Remember this: the promise you made wasn't made to impress anyone. It wasn't made to prove anything to the world. It was made to prove something to yourself: that you are capable of more than you've been allowing, that your potential runs deeper than your excuses, that your spirit is stronger than your circumstances. And when you live by that truth, you stop needing external validation. You stop measuring yourself by other people's timelines. You stop comparing your journey to anyone else's, because you realize that the only competition that ever mattered was between who you are and who you said you would be. The journey of keeping your promise will sometimes feel lonely. It will demand silence, focus, and isolation from the noise. But in that silence, you'll begin to hear yourself again. You'll begin to recognize your own voice, the one that was buried under doubt, distraction, and fear. That voice will guide you. It will remind you of why you started. It will tell you to keep going when no one else is clapping. And that's when you'll know you're on the right path, because growth rarely feels glamorous. It often feels like work, like patience, like faith without evidence. But that's where transformation lives, in the unseen spaces between effort and result. You promised more because you saw something within yourself that others couldn't. You saw potential in places the world overlooked. You saw strength in moments when others doubted you. And that vision, that belief, was not a mistake. It was the truth calling you forward. Every challenge, every setback, every obstacle that has stood in your way has only been there to prepare you for what's next. The struggles you faced were not punishments, they were lessons. They were sharpening you, refining you, preparing you to handle the weight of the life you've been building. So when the road feels endless, when the results still haven't arrived, remember, you're not starting over, you're continuing. You're adding another layer of strength, another layer of wisdom, another layer of resilience. The promise you made is alive each time you choose to keep moving, no matter how small the step. The promise lives in your persistence. It lives in your refusal to quit. It lives in every moment you say, "I will try again." You have come too far to stop now. You've grown too much to turn back. You've proven too much to doubt yourself. You've already fought battles that most will never understand, and you're still standing. That means something. That means the fire inside you burns stronger than the challenges outside you. And as long as that fire burns, there's more ahead for you. More growth, more peace, more strength, more of the life you promised yourself when you first began. The world may not see it yet, but you can feel it: the quiet power of persistence, the shift in your spirit, the calm that comes from knowing you're living in truth. And that's how it happens, not through sudden leaps, but through steady, deliberate steps that honor your word. You've already proven that you can survive difficulty. Now it's time to prove that you can thrive through it. You don't need the world's permission to keep going. You already gave yourself permission the day you made that promise. And that promise, if you continue to live by it, will take you further than you ever imagined, not because of what you'll gain, but because of who you'll become on the way there.